Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, if you have been perusing YouTube, forums, or Reddit, you've probably seen this graph show up a few times. This graph is a number of active players each month for the EU server. Now, if you take a look at it, you'll notice that there's a very sharp downward trajectory of this graph. And, yeah, it does most certainly look like there's a lot of people that are just not playing the game anymore. And because of that, it's being held by those players that, of course, believe that assumption that, hey, look, Wargaming's choices are terrible, players leaving the game in droves, and that, you know, there's no coming back, Wargaming's killed the game, it's a dead and dying game, yada yada yada, so forth and so on. But where did this graph come from? I certainly got curious about that, especially considering some things that we'll talk about here in a minute. So I went and I did some digging. So this graph this graph didn't actually appear anywhere at first, but it was posted as part of a, I don't know if you call it a data set or some stats that this fella corralled up using the API. And he originally posted not this graph, rather a graph that was discussing the trend of more dedicated veteran players, higher skilled players leaving the game in large numbers. And that is a trend I do agree with, and I 100% agree with him on that, and we'll talk about why again here in a bit. But in this was, of course, this graph as well. Now, in this whole set, which I will again link in the description down below, this graph appeared, and this is the EU server, average players per month, well, number of active players each month. So, of course, I mean, when Reddit gets a hold of something that makes the game look negative in any light, it's going to, of course, get spread like wildfire. Now, where is this coming from? Again, he's using the public API. Why does he have to use that and not, like, stats from Wargaming? Well, you see, Wargaming doesn't really have any official player count stats, at least nothing like this. You can see how many people are in game. It's displayed in port or in battle. If you slap the escape button, it brings up the menu, and in the upper left hand corner it'll show you the total number of players on at that moment. And in port, it's either displayed in the upper left hand corner all the time, or again you slap escape and it comes up with the menu and it's in the upper left hand corner. That's about all you get from Wargaming. So if you want to get an idea of, you know, an overall summary of how many players are on, or what are the trends with the player numbers, you gotta go to third-party sources. And this is most certainly what this is. Now, this is just him doing this, to the best of my knowledge, of what he's posted on Reddit and such, indicating that this is something that he himself is working on. And we'll get to what he has to say again here in a minute. Now, is there any way we can verify this? Yeah, there is. There are a couple of sources that have been used since time immemorial in regards to Wargaming. World Warships lifespan at least. That have always been used to discuss the player numbers. There's two main sources. The first one is, of course, Steam charts. Now, Steam charts, a very small percentage of the player base has the game downloaded on Steam. Because, well, the game came out in its launcher by itself, and then it was later added to Steam. However long ago it was added to Steam. So a very small number of players actually play it on Steam, but you can still see the general trends with the player base from the Steam charts. Does the Steam chart show this massive drop in players? No, it doesn't. There is a drop in players right now, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it's fairly minuscule. As far as Steam goes, there's typically about 14 to 12,000 players online, depending upon what part of the year that you're in. Right now, for the summer months, it's about 12 to 11,000. And sure enough, right now, there's about 12,000 players on Steam playing Wood Warships, at least at the peak for the 24 hours. For the month. So that's about right. And keep in mind too that this original graph is showing that from just 1 year ago, in March of last year, to where this chart goes, because this chart just goes to March of 2023, which it says right now there's 440,000-ish active players in Wood Warships per month. If we go to a year ago, it says there was, at that time in 2022, 817,000 active players. So a 50% drop in 1 year. That's not reflected on the Steam charts, which again, even though it's a smaller sample size, there should be a pretty significant drop of players from a year ago, but there's not. Okay, what's the second source that we can try to check this out with? Well, that is the good old stats page, which link to this and the Steam charts is linked down below. So, do we see a massive drop in the player count for the European server in the Steam? Not the Steam, in the stats site. Again, no, we don't see that. Again, this chart is asserting that there is a 50% drop in the amount of active players from 1 year ago to 2 months ago. Do we see that? No, it's about where it should be. So, and keep in mind too, for this site, this is the showing us the daily count of players, not the average monthly count. But still, if you have half of your players logging in every month, you're going to see a massive drop in the daily players. You should. I mean, that's if you have half the players not logging in anymore every month, you should most certainly see that here. So, just using these two, also third-party API-based site. Well, Steam's not really API-based, but this is an API-based site. This isn't corresponding to what we're seeing here. So you could also say, well, of course, they're not official numbers. They're both third-party sources. Maybe this guy has a more up-to-date data set. But I mean, again, this is, and in fact, the stats page has this month's stats as well. And again, it's showing us what we've always seen for the time of the year, that there's a decline right now because it's summer. People don't stay inside. They don't stay inside and play video games. And, school's out. They're out and about on vacation and such. But then something very interesting happened. Apparently, enough noise was made over these stats that Wargaming actually dared to venture into Reddit and for once showed us their side of this argument. And they plopped down a few charts of their own making. And this is, to my knowledge, the first time Wargaming has ever shown us charts of player number trends. Now, there are some issues with this, which, again, we'll get to that in a minute. But let's see what they said. So, they went ahead and they went with monthly active users as well. So this is someone that within a 30-day period, they logged in, they played some games in a month. Now, their chart for the EU paints a much different story than what we've seen with the original chart that's been going around from WowCac. In fact, it shows slight growth on the EU server, which would make sense because you have players coming over from the Russian server that don't want to be stuck with a different version of the game, migrating over to the European server. So they're showing slight growth, but I mean, it's not like a tremendous amount of growth. It is very slight. So again, probably, a couple thousand players coming over from the Russian server. And they also included the general overall trend for the three servers together, the North America, EU, and Asia, which shows slight growth. Wondering about the North American server, it's the North American server. Incredibly friggin' steady, with slight decline as of right now. Okay, now what are the problems with Wargaming's numbers? Well, they don't give us numbers. If you notice, the y-axis be kind of blank. Now, Wargaming has never, again, really discussed numbers, to my knowledge, in terms of average player counts and things like that. They do discuss trends, though. And what Wargaming showed us is something that we've been seeing for years, using the tools that we've had for years, that player base is very steady. There is most certainly a seasonal shifting of numbers. Again, less people play in the summer, more people play in the winter. They all have hikes from COVID and subsequent declines from COVID as well. So, yeah, what are we to believe? The thing that we've been seeing for years on years on years on years, or this new set of data from this guy? Now, I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to like talk him down or anything like that. In fact, he himself, the original poster, does err on the side of caution. In several of his replies to this Reddit post, he does state that this is still, one, very early on work, and two, the numbers are probably inflated with his study, because what he did is that he included anybody that logged in from one time way all the way back in 2017 to today, meaning that if you logged in like, you know, the day after the game, well, 2017. So if you logged in January 1st, 2017, but you logged in June of 2022 or 2020, well, June 2023 hasn't happened yet, but you guys get what I'm saying. You could have logged in June of 2022. It would have counted that person as active for the entire time of his graph, meaning that the numbers are going to be highly inflated. And that also means that if someone's taking a break from the game, like, let's say, you know, they take like 4 or 5 months off. I know plenty of players that do that. Then they come back. They obviously aren't going to be included in this graph, because if they haven't logged in by, I'm guessing this was churned out around March, April-ish. If you hadn't logged in, so let's say, you know, in like January, December, November, you know, somewhere in there, you decide to take a break, you aren't included in this. Which, of course, that's also a lot of holiday time, so maybe you take a few months off from the game for, you know, whatever reasons, the holidays, you get off, and you don't get back on until later after the holidays or into the new year. You're not included in this. So those could be some major issues. And that's not even taking into account duplicated accounts, press accounts, like COTS is ran entirely on press accounts now. Museum accounts, some museum ships have like little Warships hubs set up and things like that, although I don't think those are actually connected to the Playerbase online. I could be wrong, but I've seen those around, so those could be something that gets tossed in there as well. Whereas the other sources that we have for this, the Steam's charts page and the stats page, they go by daily player numbers, something that gives you a much more clearer and better idea of, you know, the amount of people that are actually playing the game on a day-to-day basis. And those sources align more with Wargaming sources. And keep in mind too, Wargaming is the only, you know, one that knows 100% for sure how many people are playing the game. They're the only official source of player numbers. They run the game. They see that. Why don't they share it? Again, I don't know. Could be some business side of things. Could be some, maybe there are only like 5 people still playing the game or something like that, and we're all actually bots. You know, for whatever reason they have never shared hard figures from my knowledge. So it's not like they used to share hard figures and now, like 2 years ago, they stopped sharing hard figures. They've been consistently silent on this issue until now. Why? Well, they said they were going to be more transparent with us, and here they are, you know, saying, no, this isn't really correct. It's either incomplete or incorrect, and here's what the actual trends are. And naturally, they're getting dragged in the threads because, well, Reddit is a amazing echo chamber for anger and rage, if you haven't figured that out yet. So, I myself am more inclined to believe that half the player base hasn't disappeared in a year. I do agree with his conclusion that the more veteran, high-skilled players are most certainly leaving in high numbers, but I do believe we are getting enough new players to at least stave off a mass exodus of players overall, because two things. I play clan battles, and I run a YouTube channel. Playing clan battles lets me see that, yes, there is a very, very much drying up of the more competitive, more dedicated players. Why? Because we'll run into 3 or 4 of the same clan on the same night, night after night, when clan battles rolls around. New players coming in. My second point, I run a YouTube channel. I have tons of newer players commenting that, hey, just joined the game, really glad you made this guide, or what ship should I get for this, what line should I grind up first. It never fails that when I'm streaming or when I put out a video, there's at least like 1 or 2 comments on a video. When I stream, I get plenty of those newer guys coming in asking me questions about, again, what line should I grind, what coal ship should I be saving up for, how do I do this, how do I do that. So there's new players coming in, just at the rate enough to replace the old veteran players that are leaving. So, yeah, I'm more inclined to agree with the sentiment that while the game isn't dying, it surely isn't really growing that much. According to Wargaming, it's growing very slightly, but not a whole lot. Definitely in the North America server, it's staying about the same. Because, again, you can go in-game, slap escape, and just about every day when I get on, about 12 to 14,000 players. So, that's my 2 cents on the subject. I just wanted to share my thoughts on this with you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Again, I'll link all the charts and doodads and whatnot so you guys can check it out and make your own determination. Again, just share your thoughts with me. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 50,000 subs, and I can't think you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.